everyone, and thank you for joining today's session on Agile testing and automation. We've got Eric, who delivered a few weeks ago, and we all had a good bank holiday, but he's back to help us understand Agile testing and automation and how we have to build quality into the process. I'll hand over the stage to Eric, and let's all have open ears to listen to his nuggets. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Right, thanks, William. Hello, everyone. Good to be here again. Good to see you. Hope you had a good bank holiday break. So I'm going to continue my presentation on Agile testing and automation. And I just want to remind us that we said last week that I was going to lay some foundations before we go into the Agile and automation side of stuff. So these first slides or the first sessions are going to concentrate on laying foundation, on what testing is all about, etc. So today I just want to go first of all to the previous session. Previously, that is last week, our first session, we did an introduction to testing, and we looked at what testing is. We also looked at why do we test, and then we looked at why faults occur. Today, we are going to continue with the introduction to testing, but then I call it part 2. But then we will be looking at the value of testing, how much testing is enough or should be done, should be performed, and then test basis. So these are the 3 things that we are going to be looking at today. I promised the last time that we were going to look at some additional stuff, but then when I went back, I thought it might be too much, and it was necessary that I go over the value of testing. So I swapped that with fundamentals of testing. I had to do that. So pardon me if you were looking forward to more, but then because we're starting, the first few sessions will help us gauge how much is enough per session. So pardon me for that. I'm going to go straight into the value of testing today. And value of testing, let me just move this. Yep. Okay, so value of testing. Testing delivers value to the business or to the project or operation in 2 ways. Or we try and explain it in 2 ways. There's the qualitative value, and then there's the quantitative. Then there's the quantitative value. When we talk about qualitative value, this includes improvements for test quality or improved reputation for quality. It also refers to, that's the qualitative. It also refers to smoother and more, or it includes, beg your pardon, it includes smoother and more predictable releases, increased confidence. It also includes protection from legal liability, and reducing risk of loss of mission or even lives. And when we talk about quantitative value of testing, because the business, testing gives value to the business, but then in terms of quantitative value, we're talking about finding defects that are prevented or fixed prior to release to live. Testing is valuable in the sense of the fact that we find defects that are known prior as well to release, and then testing reduces the risk by running tests. Testers run all kinds of tests are run within the sprint or within an iteration. Testing also produces value by delivering information to the project. To the project or even process and status.
Transportation, carrying of the products from
Right. Talk about the value of testing as well. One of the well-established methods for measuring quantitative value of testing is the cost of quality. The cost of quality. Am I running too fast? Okay. Yeah. One of the well-established methods of measuring quantitative value of testing is the cost of quality. Or by cost of quality, we're referring to the total costs incurred on quality activities and issues. Okay, the total costs incurred on quality activities and issues. And cost of quality is usually classified in 4 categories. The first one is the cost of prevention. Cost of prevention. And by cost of prevention, an example is training developers to write secure and more maintainable code. Then the second category is costs of cost of detection. It's also the same as cost of appraisal. Okay, cost of detection. For instance, writing tests, test cases, configuring test environment, and then reviewing requirements. The third one is cost of internal failure. The cost of internal failure, right? In terms of test, an example of the cost of internal failure is fixing of defects detected during testing or reviews prior to delivery. So before delivery, some defects are found, and then the team can decide to keep them. And then the third cost of quality or category of cost of quality is cost of external failure. These are costs associated with live bugs. An example could be they are basically, they are support costs associated with defects that are found in live or in production. Okay. Again, looking at cost of quality, I mentioned cost of prevention. Cost of prevention. Cost of prevention and the cost of detection. When these two are summed up, if you add the cost of prevention and the cost of detection, the total, we call it cost of quality as well. And then
these are the things that need to go in the BID.
Okay. And then when you put cost of internal failure and then the cost of external failure together, these two come together to give us the cost of poor quality. Right, I'll put that into perspective for us. If let's say, even before I continue, I just want to add something, that cost of detection and then the cost of internal failure, the one at the top right, the cost of detection and the cost of internal failure, when these two usually make up a good portion of testing budget. Okay, a good portion of testing budget. Let me just see if I can find this. Let's just say you spend £100 on cost of detection, which is bugs that are found during sprint, and then you spend £100 on this cost of detection, and you spend another £100, or even cost of internal failure is about £100. These two will always happen. The cost of detection and the cost of internal failure will always happen, occur, because no matter what cost of detection, remember I said an example is the cost of writing test cases, etc. You will always write test cases. You will always set up environment. And then the cost of internal failure, defects will be found and fixed when developers develop their stuff. So if you spend £100 on cost of detection, spend another £100 on cost of internal failure. That makes it £200. However, if a bug or a defect is found in production, that will incur the business an additional cost. Let's just say it costs you another £100 to fix the bug in production. What you're doing here is spending more money, extra money. Cost of that is the cost of external failure. You're spending extra money here, so it is better to have that we avoid any cost of external failure. Basically, it's important that we avoid any cost of external failure, which is why if we can help testers or invest and avoid any cost of external failure, it will be good for the business. Clearly, we will be saving £100 here. Okay. From a project perspective, the amount of testing that can be conducted is driven by three things: budget, delivery dates, and then test cases, as in tests that are executed. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. Testing can show, there are two principles of testing that I want to mention here. Testing can show the presence of defects, but it cannot prove that there's no defects in the system. Okay, and testers are always also aware, or we recognize that it is not feasible to test every single combination of inputs and preconditions due to lack of time and money. So we say that exhaustive testing is not practical, right? Exhaustive testing is not practical. Because of that, I'll just say, because of the two principles that I just said, no one will ever know, because we can never know. Testing does not prove, testing cannot prove that there's no defects in the system, and exhaustive testing is not practical. It is kind of difficult for the business or for anyone to define exactly how much testing is enough for any, or in any case. So what testing tries to do is that we combine risks, okay, or risk analysis, and then testing techniques, and then priorities. We combine all these three to come up with how much should be tested. I hope that makes sense. If there's any question around that, I'll come to the testing Q&A side and then explain that to you again. Right. I'm going to move on to the next one, test basis. Test basis is basically the body of knowledge used. The body of knowledge used as the basis for test analysis and design. So during test analysis, the test basis is analyzed to identify testable features and to define associated test conditions. And we will be looking at test analysis in the next session. Right. An example, for instance, of some of these test bases. I call these testers best friends, or our weapon. We need these things to know what should be tested, or to kind of write our test cases, or to analyze, basically. An example is business requirement documents, technical design documents, or technical design spec, functional design spec, use cases, system requirement documents, and another one is code repository. Even some test cases can be used or test cases can be used as test basis. All right. So to put it into perspective, I've got there are some questions. I call them 3 questions, or 3 important questions that testers usually should be asking themselves. The first one I'll say is, what does the business want? In order to know what kind of test basis to use, what does the business want the system to do? That's an important question, right? So in terms of test basis, or where to get that information from, I would go to the business requirement document, and this we know is owned by the BA. The BAs, if you're online, this document is very important for testing. It's one of our very important weapons that we use in doing our work. And this in turn drives the user acceptance testing, which is owned by the manual tester. Right. Another question a test analyst will ask themselves is, how do we test the system under test? How do we test? How do we want the system under test to do whatever has been required? So for this, I would refer to the functional or non-functional spec, because it will have more detailed information. This is usually owned by our system architect or tech architect, or sometimes the product owner. And I want to remind us that, as I said, the first 4 slides are concentrating on, not necessarily on Agile. So, but we will bring this into the Agile world in future. And this document also drives what we call the system test, or it drives system testing, it drives integration testing, and performance testing, because it gives us more detailed information to write our test cases. And this is owned by the manual tester or automation tester. They perform testing, or they need this document to perform their testing. A third question that we probably ask ourselves when defining test basis is, how are we going to get this system under test to do whatever we're being asked to do? And that points us to another document, that is the low-level design spec. Low-level design spec. This is usually owned by our developers or tech analysts. It could be technical test analysts. And this drives unit testing, which is another type of test, and owned by developers. So this brings us, I'm sure that there will be questions, but this brings us to the end of the three topics that I said I was going to discuss. This brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much. I will invite. Okay, yeah, let me just talk about what we're going to mention, what we're going to be talking about next. We will be talking about fundamental test activities. So many activities that make up testing. We will be talking about that next. Thanks. So I will open the floor for questions. We have, yeah, I will allow questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for such an insightful knowledge share.
I want to say, William, pardon me for that. If I moved too fast, it was because I wasn't sure. I felt from the beginning, I thought I brought too much in. So feel free to ask questions and then we can go back into everything.
Okay. So an area you talked about is test risk analysis and test techniques.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you touch on those first, more the test risk analysis? Can you tell us a bit more about why anyone has to consider that? Because I know I work with a lot of testers and they do what they have to do, but we never see them documenting a risk document for us to look at. Is it similar or quite different?
Yeah, so risk is basically anything that will and let me just in layman's language is kind of any potential issues. Okay, so it is important that if let's just say for instance the test environment is not ready, or is not ready, or we don't have enough test resources, or you know that that whatever you're going to be working on, developers will not what's a good one? An easy one is unit testing, for instance. You know that the project that you're working on, there will be no unit tests. You want to mention that and spell that out, because that means that you will need more time to do testing. If there'll be unit testing, you know that most of the testing would have been done before it comes to you, the manual tester. So it is important that testers identify these sort of issues, and then call them out. If the delivery dates are too short for the number of testers that you've got, or the amount of work available, you want to call that out in your planning, which all of these will come in our next next session. So yes, it is critical that the tester calls this out. I've had an issue before where I was going to bring this into the agile side of stuff, but I had an issue before where as a project team, we agreed to look at performance later on as part of the plan. And so because we agreed that, I didn't raise it as a risk, when I knew very well that performance is something that we need to be looking at with him, but the team agreed. So I also went with whatever decision the team agreed on. But later on, when we got into trouble, or when the project became, when the project was late or got into a very late stage, performance became the reason that the project was late. And guess what? Everyone will point to you, the test analyst, for not raising the risk for that. So it is critical. Yeah. Anything you spot as a test analyst, you want to put it in your plan and flag it up straight away.
Okay. So does that mean, as the project manager has a risk document, the test team also have a risk document?
Yes. So you as a test analyst, being the project manager, is going to be looking at you to feed, is going to be looking at the BA to feed some risks into his list, into the project list. Is going to be looking at developers to feed their list, the list of risks into the project risks. So you as a test analyst want to feed that in as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Hello, Eric. Can you hear me?
Hey, Owen.
Yeah, thanks for the session today. Just one or two questions. I'm just thinking, before a solution goes live, a lot of testing would have been done. And like you said, testing can never be enough. You cannot be exhausted due to constraints of time, budget, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes.
However, when it goes live, there is always one or two bugs.
Yep.
And sometimes a lot. Now, what can the tester do to mitigate or to try to eliminate these sort of bugs coming up under the testing stage? Because I was involved. I saw one time when a solution went live, and it was a massive disaster.
Yeah.
It was a massive disaster. It was a bank, Fact B, and they lost people's monies. Were just, I would stay like this, and the next thing I received a credit to my account, money debited to my account, and I was thinking, so I'm just wondering that kind of a scenario.
Yeah. So I've gone back to, I don't know if you can see the slide that I'm looking at. Because of the constraints like money, because of project constraints, as in time, skills, and money and how much work is available, how many test cases should be will be executed by the test analyst. Testing has to combine cleverly and carefully risk analysis, as I mentioned, and then testing techniques, and the third one, priorities. You definitely want to prioritize what to test, based on business, based on some metrics, especially business requirements or whatever it is that you agree with the team. But you definitely want to prioritize. So if your testing team had prioritized, or if they prioritize what should be tested first, and then report back to the team and say, we've got X number of test cases, here's what we were able to execute, here's what we were not able to execute. But let's say priority one, depending on the what's the document, the test strategy. The test strategy was, or the entry criteria, let me put that. We will look at this in the next session. Depending on the entry criteria that you've got, let's just say exit criteria rather. The exit criteria might say we want to make sure that we've executed all priority 1 and 2 bugs or test cases. Okay, so you want to prioritize and then make sure you execute what you can do and report back what you've not executed. At the end of the day, you probably triage or review the reports, and then the project manager will probably say, you know what, we've got a lot of priority 1, 2 bugs, we can't go live with this. But I don't know whether I've answered your question. Prioritizing and then reviewing the report would have solved that problem for you.
Yeah.
No, if not, please come back.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Because when I see, I'm looking at here, you mentioned a very important subject, which is the budget, which is one of the constraints in the testing. But at the end of the day,
it's a project constraint.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it that at the end of the day, if the solution goes live, and then the amount of money you have to spend to even fix it, it doesn't warrant that initial.
Well, that's why your test plan. I'm trying not to go into my next session, but your test plan should have exit criteria, and this exit criteria will say that we want to make sure that all priority 1, 2, 3 bugs. Let's just say you got priority 1 to 5. We want to make sure that you can say you want to make sure all test cases have been executed. If these are not done, as a test analyst in your report, you make it clear that we did not execute these tests. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to go into that again, but then if you meet your exit criteria, or once you've reported as a test analyst to say we executed X number of test cases, it's the project manager's responsibility to say, oh, we've got so many test cases outstanding, or we've got X number of bugs, high priority bugs still outstanding, so we can't go live. And as a test analyst, I will try and fight it and say, hey guys, it's not safe. If the project manager decides that let's go anyway, I've been in projects where I've seen serious bugs, and then they still agree. The project manager agrees that, well, once we've triaged it, the business is happy with that, let's push it forward. So I think a lot of this question will come in our next session. But the tester has to raise risks, combine this risk, analysis, use testing techniques, and then priorities to decide how much testing should be done.
Okay. Thanks very much. Oh, it's not hearing me. Okay. Thanks very much, Eric.
Okay.
Sure. Any other questions?
Come on, guys, don't do this again.
Eric,
either
you've been very clear, because I've followed it, and everything you've said it more like a tester who builds quality into their process. And in the slides as well, I've also been able to gain so much from the session. But I think Sam has got a question. Sam, have you got a question for Eric?
Right. I was going to say, like the way he also answered Owen's question, I mean, threw more light on the risk analysis bits
Yes.
with regards to testing. So I think the question made him come out very clearly. And yeah, so apart from that, the presentation is excellent for me. I mean, I really understand everything that he said over there. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tosin?
Yeah, hi Eric. Thank you very much. I just wanted to maybe ask a question that if there was one takeaway you wanted us to take away from this, what would it be?
Oh, that testing. Where is it? Testing gives a lot of value, and testing gives a lot of value to the product, to the project. Yeah.
Okay, and on that basis, you know, when you have the automated tester side things of that, is that still, that doesn't replace an actual tester, does it?
It can never replace manual tester. It can never. No. I mean, I've been in interviews or I've gone for tests. I've been in places where I've had to do 100% automation as the only tester, but I always manually test because there are certain things you can't, or it depends if it's functional, even if it's performance testing, you want to manually look at stuff. Yeah, so it depends on what you're testing, but generally you can't replace a manual tester.
Probably this could be a question for another day, talking about this manual testing and the automation, you see, as in the advantages and disadvantages,
Oh, yeah. Definitely for another day. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the sessions that we've got coming up, so definitely, yeah.
Yeah, please feel free. Okay. Feel free to raise your hands or type in the chat area if you've got any questions, and I'll definitely ask Eric to answer your questions. Go ahead, UM.
Yeah, I was just thinking as a tester, Eric, it was very seasoned test and all of that. So if you realize that during, the testing sessions, and there's a lot of bugs that you feel that it's not professionally appropriate to go live because of it, and the project manager says, no, we're running short of time delivery, because that's his job. It's all about time for the delivery of the project. So as a tester, you're very convinced that, no, the project shouldn't go live. What can you advise, or what would you do? Because you know that at the end of the day, there will be serious consequences of going live. So what would you do to say, okay, let me try to cover up this situation, or I don't know how to phrase it, but what would you do?
No, yeah, I get your frustration. I mean, because I've been in that situation a few times. I mean, it depends on the team that you're working on. If you're working under a test manager, you want to, slide out of the team. You want to carefully. You don't want to keep going to your test manager because they might misinterpret your actions. But to be on the safer side, I'll have a chat with my test manager and say, you know what, I'm not happy with this. But I can assure you, the test manager will ask you one question: have you reported it? Because once you've documented it and passed it on to the test manager and also included that, this is not safe, or we've got X number of high priority bugs, you've covered yourself. You don't want to, as a test analyst, you don't want to, I've always shouted and said, hey guys, we're not in a good place. But you want to be a team player as well. And if the team agrees that this is good enough, the business is happy with this. If the business is happy with that and saying, yeah, we can live with this type of bug, that stops you, the test analyst, because our job is to report the status of the application. So
Does the business come back later on to say, "Oh, you are the professional. You should have advised us. That's why we hired
no,
you"?
your advice is your test report, and again,
Okay.
this will come in. This will come in the next.
Okay.
You know, because you could leave the company one day. You could leave the company, but there's got to be something that will show that this was tested, and all that comes in your report.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
But within the team, you need to shout because you're there for the team, and you need to make it very clear.
Okay. Thanks very much, Eric.
And yeah, that's a wrap for me. unless William allows any more questions, I'm good. So yeah, did I mention the next session? The next one?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure I did. But the next one.
Hi. Sorry, good afternoon. Thank you for the wonderful session. I sent a question. I have a noisy background. I sent some questions to the chat box. You can just have a look for me. Thank you.
So that's Lola. So I'd like to know if a junior tester needs to know about how to capture risks. Also, who gives the directive to say the product should go live? Is it the project manager? Yeah, it's the project manager. I think usually most teams have go live dates. If it's an agile team, obviously you've got your daily stand-ups, you've got your review sessions, so you do that. But personally, it is the project manager who decides whether to go live and what to go live with. Your first question was, I'd like to know if a junior tester needs to know about how. Oh yeah, absolutely. Every test analyst should know about risk analysis and how to. If you want us to do more of that, we can do risk-based testing, or we can do something on that. If time will allow us, or if it's a critical thing that you want us to look into, yes, I can prepare for that as well. But every tester or test analyst should be reporting risks. We should be flagging it up. I mean, we write tests. Even your test cases are for risk management, because there's a risk of a bug going to live. So you want to alleviate that by writing test cases or executing tests. So hope I've answered the question, Bella. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. And if you have any questions, please do send them in the group chat area. Eric is on the group chat area, and definitely he will be answering all your questions. And for joining today, we also want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow whilst we start the Skilled Agile Framework. So from tomorrow, we'll be looking at business agility spotlight on the Skilled Agile Framework. And then we've got on Friday, data modeling. Thanks, everyone. And let's have a wonderful week.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all soon.
Thank you.
William. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, William.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time.